Well, good morning, guys. And this beautiful rainy day in Florida. It's going to be a wet one today. So we ended the last video with hammer forming the gauge cluster pieces. That was getting a little long, and the next step that I want to do is do the wiring. So I'm going to make a separate video for wiring, which is what this is going to be. So generally, a little bit of real talk here. Generally, I do not like wiring because it takes me so long. And it takes me so long is because I wrap every individual wire with this wire loom. So this is not the split stuff. It's actually, you feed it inside there and you run it all the way through till you're at the end. So what I've done already this morning is I just ran a wire from the fuel sending unit up, and then I ran the water temp sensor wire, the alternator exciter wire, the oil pressure sending unit wire up. So I ran all those up into the one area. I still have to put a grommet, but I'll show you that here. So let me show you that real quick. So those are all these wires right here. Right, so that's how I ran them. Right now I just have them zip tied right there to the frame for now. I'm not finalizing anything until it's fully set up. So inside here, what I did was I joined the power to the gauges. This is the ground to the gauges. And then this is for backlighting right here. And also I added plugs. So this is for my tack wire, the single one. And then over here are the wires for the plugs for the water temp, oil pressure, and fuel gauge. So I can just unhook these little guys. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. And I cannot, but you just clip this off and this unplugs and that whole thing can come out. So I did add, I got my switch in, my ignition switch. So right now I just have, so this one is from the battery. This one is accessory. This one runs to the solenoid, and then this one is the ignition on. Okay. And then how I've got these down here, this is what I mean. I've got them all wire loomed up. This is the only wire that you'll see, hopefully, visible on the whole engine, is this one right here, because I want to keep all that kind of clean. And then I've already ran all the alternator stuff, so the ground to the alternator, and I'm running a 2-wire. So I have 1 wire to excite the alternator, is ran in here for the ignition, and then I have down there's a post that the other wire runs to the battery, runs down to the starter, and then from there goes to the battery. So with all that going on, here is the wiring harness that I bought. So this is very inexpensive wiring harness. It's like a hot rodder special one or whatever. I get it. It's got some cool things going on there, right? But I don't think I'm going to use this. I'm feeling kind of froggy here because one, the wires don't even go to the back. I mean, the bed on the other side of the cab, the bed's going to be 9 feet long, and these wiring are maybe 6. So I would still have to add the wiring to go all the way in the back, and then running all this. And I don't know, I understand this is what I would normally do. But this time around, let me go set this aside. So this time around, what I do is I'm going to make my own. I'm going to make my own harnesses from scratch. So right now I'm working on the ignition harnessing. So what I do is I have 3 of these guys, right? 1, 2, and then 3. So these are going to be mounted up underneath the dash. So there's 2 bracings underneath the dash that go from, they just kind of go right here. There's 2. And that would be perfect placement for these guys. That'll be right up like that, so I can see it all from the front of the engine. So with that front piece, let me swing it around over here, because this is going to get complicated because it's wiring and it's me explaining how I'm going to do it. Let's be honest. Okay. And I'm pretty much like, I'm trying to be very detail orientated. Had to move the welder out of the way. Very detail orientated, so anyone can watch this video and go, you know, I can do this. If he can do it, I can do it. And so anyway, so right up underneath here, there's 2 braces, and that would be perfect for these 3 guys to go up there. So I'm gonna have one, and it's all gonna be run off the ignition switch. So like, this is accessory, so this is gonna go and bolt here, and that's gonna power up this fuse block, and then on the top here has the grounding strap. So this will strap to the body. These are all the grounds, and then these are your fuses that go out to your wiring, right? So we'll run the ignition one, or I'll tell you about the accessory one first. I'm explaining it with everything out of the vehicle, so it's easier for me to show you. Okay, so here's where the accessory will be here. So when you turn the key to the accessory, it'll power this up. When it's running or in the on position, this powers up. Now the ignition switch, when you go to actually start it, the accessory turns off, and until it comes back to the run position, that's when this gets power. So when you switch the switch over to ignition to start the vehicle, the ignition switch, the ignition pole on the starter is active, and the solenoid pole is active, besides the battery. Obviously the battery is active because that's what throws power everywhere. So the accessory one will go here, and then from here we'll go out any accessories, right? Like if I have a radio, but this will be also for the gauges. So once it's running, the gauges will be operating, you know, stuff like that. So that's what this one, and then I'll have empty spots for other things, right? Yeah. Okay. I'll stick with the same one. So then what I'm going to have is I'm going to have a wire that runs from the battery. So it's going to be off the terminal, off the starter. So the starter will connect, the battery will connect to the starter, and from the starter post, the battery post off the starter, there's going to be a wire from the alternator that runs down to that post, and that's going to do the charge. And then from there, that another wire is going to come off that post, and it's going to go to another one of these, and that's going to be connected here on the bottom. So one will be all-time power, basically is what I'm saying. So I'll have my accessory off the switch, then I'll have all-time power. So on the all-time power, I know this is getting kind of confusing, but I'm going to put up my chart. I actually drew up the schematic of the starting, or the start diagram for everything to start this thing. So from there, there's going to be a 10 gauge wire coming off from this and going to the battery side of the switch. Also off the one from the battery, I will be running relays, because relays you have to power off the battery, and then you have a trigger wire, then you have a ground, and then you have the wire that goes out to the device that you're triggering to turn on, which would be the fuel pump. So this one would have a wire out, would go into the relay, and then you would have your trigger wire, which would be off another one. I know this is getting kind of complicated, right? Okay, so I'll just put up the chart. Know that I'm going to have one for the battery, I'm going to have one for accessories, and I'm going to have one for ignition. So the ignition post off the switch will be also ran into one of these, and then the ignition one out will be running the HEI distributor, the exciter wire, and the trigger for the fuel pump, because I need those things on when I'm trying to start the vehicle. I hope that made sense. So that's why I'm saying I'm devoting like one video for just the wiring stuff. And I think that's going to be great. So I'm going to have a separate system basically for starting. And this truck is very basic, right? You have your starting circuit or harness, and then you'll have your lights. And that's pretty much it. I mean, besides what I figure out what I'm going to do with the heater slash AC unit, because I want it to have AC. I don't have any room for a compressor down here in the motor. So I'm thinking of going electric. So electric AC pump. Condenser is going to go in the back. But once we cross that bridge, I'll get more into that. But just know it's going to have AC, but it's not going to have your traditional AC. It's going to have your electric AC. That's why I'm not sure if this alternator will handle the output, because they say you need, I think, like 100 amps to alternator to run an electric AC unit. This is 95 amps, but this was free. So I'm going to try this first. If I need to upgrade the alternator to 100 or 150 amp alternator, you know, that's an easy fix, because I can get to everything and I can swap it out if it doesn't work. And all those things will be ran off these 3 fuse boxes. So each one of these has 6 fuses. So it's basically 18. So I have basically an 18 circuit fuse box stuff, harness. So that's what I'm getting into. At work, we do some stuff with ABS. We do vans, and these big transporter vans on the inside usually have destroyed plastics. So I talked to my boss the other day, and I was like, hey man, I need a piece of ABS. I'm making a fuse panel thing for the truck at home. And he goes, oh, that's awesome. Take whatever you need. I don't care. So I have a couple large pieces of ABS. And how I want this to work is I want that to be mounted up there. And then I want to mount my panels here. And then down here will be like the relays, because I'll need one relay for the fuel pump, one relay for the headlights, probably a relay for the AC, heat, or whatever. And then I think that's about it. Yeah, and that's about it. And then over here, anyway, over here is going to be like my flashers for the lights, for my right and left blinker. And that'll be all tucked up underneath there like that. No issues here, because, you know, my cover comes down to here like that. And then you won't see anything up underneath there, right there. I hope this is all making sense. It will in the end. Let me set this stuff down. Am I overcomplicating this? Probably, probably. But you know what? Wiring has been kind of like one of those things that takes me a really long time. And it's really about reading the schematics of how to wire this stuff, right? When you get a really nice harness, you know, I've been using the Speedway 21 circuit harnesses, and they're great. Like, don't get me wrong, the wiring diagrams are very, very detailed, that you could do it yourself with one of those harnesses, right? But I have like 21 wires that are all bunched up, and it really doesn't look the best. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to have not a lot of wiring. I really wanted to put the fuse boxes in the back, like behind the seats and stuff, but I really want, in the end, I want accessibility. And right here, I just remove these 3 bolts here, right? And then remove how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 bolts here from underneath. And this whole piece will come out. And I don't even have to take the radiator out. I don't have to take the inside hump out, how I'm building that whenever I do finish building that. So that'll give me access to everything up underneath the dash that I need access to. And it's like right there, Phillips head screwdriver and a 1/2 inch, no, 7/16 socket. And it's done, right? So that's what we're doing. And I've got some grounding straps. I'm going to ground the motor to the chassis, then or the frame, then the cab to the frame. So I got to bond everything together for all the grounding stuff. So I hope I haven't lost any of you guys yet on this. Like, you guys are like, I am not watching this. Oh, it's so complicated. But yeah, I hope you do watch this, because I think in the end it'll be pretty informational as far as anyone that's been wanting to do this. And I have been wanting to do this, and I've been taking a whole week of just doing things, trying to figure stuff out. So am I saying it's cheaper than just buying a harness? No, that harness right there was I think under 40 bucks from eBay. Yep, I may be stealing some wires off it, but I don't want to use it. Anyway, so what we'll do is we'll start cutting some ABS plastic. We'll start bending it in the bender. I do have to take my kid to work here in about an hour, and then he's got a full shift, and then I got to pick him up later this afternoon. So and we all know that story about the 1.5 to 2 hours of driving. So all I got to say now is let's just get into this. All right, guys, so I've got the ABS panel up in there attached to the rib pieces up there that I showed you earlier, and I've got my fuse blocks all in there, and then I started running some wiring for that. So let me show you. It's real tight up in there, like I've been saying, but let me show you what I got so far. All right, so this is what we got so far. We have our battery fuse block, so this will have all-time power all the time. This is the accessory. This will be powered up when it's running, or if it's in the accessory position of the key. And this is for the ignition. So this is going to have power when you first, start it over. How the key works, or how the ignition switch, what I was explaining is that ignition has power whenever it's on the run or start position, and then this is only going to be when it's running or in the accessories position, right? I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to put fuses in line with these. I don't believe so, because it's going to be here, and these are all this is going to be fused, obviously. Yeah, so that's kind of on the fence on that, but if so, I can add fuse holders in each one of these, but, well, not the battery one, because it already will have its own fuse. But anyway, so what I'm going to work on now is I've got the mains up there. I have to run a solenoid wire that runs from here down to the starter down there. I have to run my wire from the alternator to the starter. And then I have to run a cable from the battery up to the battery terminal on this side. So that'll power that. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. Yeah, so I'll put you up here. So at this point right now, I can show you what I do here for all the wiring. So this cable right here, it is 10 gauge, and it actually is 12 volt power. It came out of one of my old harnesses, like a piece that I cut off for a while. Sorry, I don't know what that was. So I solder the end, I crimp it, then I solder it, and then I heat shrink it. And then I have my heat shrink on already. And then that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to show you this process and know that this is what I'm doing for all the battery or all the cables, right? So I'll show you real quick, and then you'll get an idea of how I'm doing all the wiring on this. So I'm just crimping it here, and then right there like that. And then I have this little guy right here that's super awesome. So we'll let that turn green. Actually, let me get you a little closer here. Like that. I mean, it's just wiring, but I'll show you what I'm doing, because a lot of this I probably won't show because it's kind of time consuming, and I'm trying to get you guys to see the real meat and potatoes of this all, right? But I'll show you how I do this. So it's got an opening right here in the front, and then I heat this up, and then I feed the soldering down into it to make a good end. First I put a little bit on there, and then it takes a minute to heat this up. We'll probably time lapse it a little bit here, and then it just feeds right in there, right in that hole. Put a little bit more on there just because. Yep, and you can see it's already poking out the back side there. That, then I give it a second to cool off. And then this one is the alternator to the battery, or to the starter post, battery post on the starter. And we'll put that right there, like that. And I just heat shrink it. Just like that. So I'm going to put this on, and then we will be back with a little bit more progress. I'm sure you guys don't want to sit here and watch me solder a bunch of wires together or whatever, but when it comes to something that's really uber important, we'll bring you back in. But yeah, so let me put this on, and then go to the next wires. All right, guys, so this little tidbit right here is for starter solenoid right there. And this is wire running from the battery post off the starter solenoid up to the fuse panel that's up there. And these are just 10 gauge. That's what's recommended for like if you were running a wire from the battery to like a distribution block or whatever is 10 gauge, and the starter solenoid is recommended for 10 gauge. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of attach these down there next onto the starter, and then I'm going to run this up. So this side, these wires right here are going to be run on the passenger side in the firewall, because it's just a tiny little grommet. Poke it through, that way I don't have to go all the way around and follow the other side. So that's so I'm going to run in there real quick. I know this video is kind of like long pauses in between things, like, but I mean it's really about just running wires and plugging them in, and running wires and plugging them in, wire looming, heat shrink, soldering ends and plugging it in. So it's not really super exciting, I guess you could say, but this gives you an idea of what I'm doing in between things. So let me hook this up, and then we'll be right back. So there's the grommet. If you look, it is double walled, so I put a grommet on the inside as well. Well, good morning, guys. So I'm just putting a little bit of gasoline in here. It's this is 93. So we're going to check for leaks. We ended up yesterday on running the final wiring from the starter up to the fuse block situation I have up there. So let me finish filling this up, and then I'll show you what we got going on up underneath the dash as far as wiring. We are starting this today, either with the radiator or without it. It's getting started. That way we can start moving. If it starts up and runs, we'll start moving on to maybe hopefully some more metal work, things that I really enjoy. So yeah, so we'll be back as soon as I finish filling this up. All right, guys, so I got 10 gallons in there. It's a 19-gallon tank. My fuel sending unit is probably sitting about 1.5 inches, 2 inches off the bottom of the tank. So I know 10 gallons will show, hopefully, on the gauge inside. So I want to put the radiator in. Look at that. My transmission lines, mud daubers, have decided to make homes in my transmission ends. So what I ended up doing was, let me bring you in here. So when you look down here, all I did was just loop them to themselves, the transmission lines. I mean, obviously I got to take those out, redo them, clean out the holes, make sure that nothing got into the radiator, meaning they didn't crawl up in there and make a home. You gotta love mud daubers, right? So let me just bring you in here and show you. So the entire circuitry for the starting system is done up underneath there. All the wires are ran, all that. I still have to button them up, meaning you know, making them neater in clusters. Right now they're just ran to where I need them to be to start this. I have not done any of the headlight stuff, but that right now is not really all that important overall. I have to figure out a better air cleaner bolt because that air cleaner was all loosey-goosey, and I don't want that to vibrate off. But yeah, so let me bring you around here and I'll show you what we got. All right, guys, so let me get that over there. So let me show you what I've got. So this is the battery. This is like a recap again, so you know where I've got everything going. So I made my own harness. So this right here is for battery power. So the battery comes in right here. This one right here is the starter solenoid, which is right there. This right here is battery. This one right here is accessories. So this one connects to this one right there. So that's the accessories. That would be like, you know, anything like a radio, or I guess radio would be the best thing because that's an accessory. Charger for your phone, that kind of thing right here. And then this one is the ignition. So this one, the ignition pull off the starter switch goes to this one. This right here is running to the HEI distributor. So everything on the ignition is what I need on when I'm trying to start it. So this is the ignition off the HEI, and I have a fuse in there. And then this one right here is the trigger for this relay. So this relay is for the fuel pump. So battery power in, trigger off the ignition, grounding up here, because these all have grounding straps. So it's grounded, 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 and then I have it grounded to the dash right there on that bolt. And then this one runs out to the fuel pump. Okay, so that's that one. This one HEI. So this one is the exciter wire for the alternator, and those are all grounded up here. Okay, so down below, right here, I have a grounding strap that goes directly from the motor to the chassis, right there. There. And then down below, I have another ground strap that runs from the cab to the back of the engine. So the engine is grounded to the chassis, and over here the engine is grounded to the cab itself. Hold on, let me get a light. Here we are. So I have the grounding strap from the battery ran to the back bolt on the starter. And then over here, I have the battery cable that goes directly to the battery on the pin, or on the pin for the starter, right? So right here is the solenoid wire up there. This one right here runs to the fuse block up front, and this one runs from the alternator to charge the battery. Runs here, goes down the battery cable, and these guys are right here for now. And then I got a board here. I'm going to set the battery on the board so it's not on the concrete. So yeah, so there's that. And as of right now, just to start this, I have the wires running back to the fuel pump right there, and there's the ground. And then I put this plug in. So this is the ground for the fuel sending unit, and then this is the actual fuel sending unit wire, and it's plugged into there. I did end up just running a ground strap from the gas tank to the chassis. And then right here, these are the two grounds. This ground is to the fuel pump, and then this ground is for the sending unit. So the one thing that I did run into, and I'll show you right now. So on the bottom of the fuel pump, right there, those two leads are push-on leads. So right now I just have a couple zip ties holding the terminals onto the positive and the negative of the fuel pump. I have to see if I can ever find, or I gotta find the actual push-on connectors that go on the bottom of that, but that should hold it for now, just to start this up. So I think what we're going to do is we're probably just going to start this. Well, you know what? Let me run the radiator in here. Let me put this right here. Boop. So let me clean up the mud dauber homes in the radiator, and then we'll set that into place here. Run our hoses, fill it up with water. I'm just going to use water at first because the block still needs to be kind of flushed out, I guess you could say. I never ran water through the block at all. But let's take care of that. And this hose right here, let me bring in. Now we're starting to get into some meat and potatoes. So this hose right here, I couldn't find one that I needed because of the end size on both sides. So I ended up making a hose out of two hoses, and inside here is a coupler. So that's what this is. So this in here is in between the two hoses. I got to put clamps on them, but I want to make sure this is the right distance. I think it's going to be too far. I think I got to kind of trim that down and move this back, but we'll know in a minute. So let me get that radiator in real quick, clean out those little mud dauber things, and then we'll be right back here in a minute, and then we'll fire this thing up. I mean, I know it's going to fire up because, you know, let's be honest, Mike tuned this all out on the engine stand, and I haven't touched it at all. Well, meaning like anything like with the distributor or the carburetor or anything like that. I do have to figure out a better holder for this, because the little crappy bolt they give you, this little guy, it just keeps backing out. So I got some all thread. When I went and got gas, I went and got a piece of all thread. I'm going to feed it down in there, and then I'm going to mark it, cut it, lock it into place so this doesn't go all over the place, because it's really bad. Okay. So let me work on this radiator. We'll be right back. right, guys, the radiator is in. I'm clearing everything. My biggest worry is these fittings down below for the transmission lines, because it's real close to the fan, because I had to pick this up in order for it to clear the upper radiator hose right here. So when I pick it up, you know, the whole thing comes up, right? But I think I got it. Yeah, I got it in the sweet spot. So like I said, all we're gonna do is just fill it up with water. I do not have an overflow tank. So let me see if I can find a jug real quick, just so I can have it, so it doesn't run. If water does come up, it won't run out all over the place. Be back. Okay, so I found a piece of hose that I'm going to stick in this, and then I'm going to set this in this jug on the ground. But first, I'm going to fill it up with water. All right, so I have my heater hose, bypass hose directly to itself. This is in, the lower radiator hose fit. Everything's clamped down. Let's start filling it up. So this is just water from the hose. That's okay. I just want to flush out the engine, right? Because I have not done this. I should have just ran water through it while I was sitting on the floor, but I did not. Actually, I'll use this empty antifreeze jug for the hole, or for the drain. So we'll put this right here, and then we'll cut it right there. And then I can reuse this once I get the overflow tank in. So it's okay. There we go. All right, guys, I think, man, I don't want that to rust. All right, so I think we're all set. I'll put that right there. This is kind of nerve-wracking a little bit, but I got all my fuses in there. Oh, I got to hook up the battery. Okay. All right. Here goes. I'm going to turn the key to the on position, and then I'm going to look to see if the fuel pump's running. I'll probably hear it, and then check real quick to see if there's any gas leaking anywhere. Yeah, so let me do that. Okay, guys, the fuel pump is running. I got lights on. All right, let's fire it up. Couple pumps. All right, here we go. Well, it didn't start. Let's see what's going on here. Well, that was uneventful. We'll be back, I hope. Okay, guys. So, when I turned the key to the on position, my HEI distributor was reading zero voltage. So, must be the fuse was bad. So, I just put in a new fuse. And with these fuse blocks, actually, let me show you, just in case you ever run into something like this. Okay, so this is my HEI distributor right here. Goes into here. So when I first turned it on, I had a red light, even with the fuse in it. So what that means is, so this right here is my igniter wire for the alternator. That's why it's connected. Something's connected to it, but it reads no power across it, right? So with that little light on, that means it's getting no power through that circuit. So what I did was I just took and I put a different fuse in there. Now look. Oh, let me get the key. See? Now it's reading power across that. So, you know, it wouldn't be something, I wired it, right? So, but really I think it was just a fuse. So now that it's flooded like a beast, I should just have to hit the starter and it should just start, because I'm sure there's plenty of fuel in there. All right, let's try this again. Yep, there was fuel in it. I have an exhaust leak. Hold on a second. Wow, that was a huge bang, wasn't it? Yeah, it just dumped fuel down into that and it popped. I have to fix that exhaust leak. Okay, hold on, we'll be right back. Okay, so I tightened up that right where the donut is in between the exhaust manifold and the pipe that runs down. I mean, that was a loud bang. That was a lot of gas in there. So let me, I don't know if I fixed the exhaust leak, but let me just fire it up. Okay. just like how it ran on the engine stand. Let me bring you back here a little bit. Obviously that one belt, or the one belt that's on there, is a little loose, or at least well, it's charging that battery because that battery was dead. But let me just kind of vroom vroom a little bit. Yeah, that belt squeal is horrible. So let me show you the gauges on the inside. So here she is running. So, yep, let me get back here. So here's my temperature. So it's at like 120. My voltage is at 13.2. My fuel is a quarter of a tank. And my oil pressure is what, 70 or 75? Let me see if I can zoom in there. There you go. And on this side, it's searching for the GPS because I don't have the antenna attached to it yet. So yeah. So that works good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this get up to temperature here. Keep an eye on my coolant. See if the thermostat opens up and sucks it in. So that's what I'm going to do here for a little bit. I'm not going to let it, I mean, really, you're going to sit here and watch this open up? I don't know. Yeah, I'm starting to get bubbles. So as soon as I see it open, we'll be back. I see bubbles. See that? I think we're close to opening up. And I'll show you the temperatures here. Right there. So that's all my vitals. It'll either open or it won't. I'm gonna put the cover on it. All right. I'll show you one more time. So yeah. I don't know, that's looking pretty good. So it's been officially running here, according to my phone, 15 minutes. So I'd say that purrs like a kitten. All right. Let's see if it shuts off. Okay. So now what we'll do is, what we'll go over here is we'll check where the battery is sitting now, just at, without the alternator to it. So it was what was it? 13.8, 13.9. Now this battery was from the bus. I charged it when we first fired up the engine, when it was still on the stand. And it's just been sitting on the block since. So right now, it's at 13.1. And when it was running, it was at 13.8, 13.9. So we're at 13.1 now. So let me bump the starter, let me start it back up. Let me make sure it'll start back up. So now let's test it. So it's reading 13.9. Okay, so that's important. I'll tell you why. Okay. So I'll tell you why 13.9 is important. Because that alternator is a 2-wire alternator, right? So I have 1 wire up to the exciter to excite it, to tell it, hey, you need to charge. And then on post number 2 or whatever, goes back to the back spot on the alternator and then sends a wire back to the battery to charge it. Okay. So I was talking to Mike last night, and I was like, hey, I'm going to start this. I ran all the wiring, and he goes, oh, send me a picture. So I sent him a picture, and he goes, okay, so what do you got on the ignition? And I told him, and he really likes how I laid it all out, very simple, versus the old harnesses that you buy. And I told him what I did, and he goes, you know, thinking about it, he goes, because I got the alternator from him. The alternator, the pulleys, the alternator and the pulley I got from him because he had these parts laying around, so he gave them to me. And he goes, I think I had that alternator converted to 1-wire. I was like, okay. And he goes, run the exciter wire up just like it would, but once you get it fired up, he was gonna try to be here today for this, but he's a motorcycle guy as well, so he was going out on a cruise today because it's such a nice day today. Yesterday was raining. He wished that maybe I would have done it yesterday, but anyway. So he goes, once you fire it up, check the battery when the car's not running, or when the engine's not running, check it when it is running. If you see a voltage going up, it's charging, so you do not have to hook up the exciter wire, because if you do hook up the exciter wire and it's a 1-wire charge, you will not be able to turn it off because it'll backfeed, that exciter wire will backfeed into the system. So that's why I had the fuse pulled out for the exciter wire. And since it all charges, that is actually a 1-wire alternator. So he was right, he did have it converted over. He wasn't sure, but he was 99% sure that it was. Okay, so that's all that. It starts up. It's been running, it ran for what, 15 minutes there? Never got over 160. You know, it was a little bit above 150, but I don't know because the gauges, come on, let's be honest, the gauges aren't the best gauges in the world. But it wasn't over 160. When I just fired it up after letting it sit for a little bit, it was up to 180. I checked the battery. I came back in, and it was back down to almost 150. But it's hot inside there. Oh my gosh, is it hot. Definitely have to insulate that trans tunnel. or the engine hump. Okay, so let me just double check everything. I'm going to get up underneath, make sure nothing's leaking, and then we'll be back and talk about it. All right, guys, so I just thought I'd throw this in real quick. So this took maybe about 3 minutes to put in. The bolts right there, and then the two that go down here on the side. And then I moved the bottle on the other side of the grill shell area. I'm going to pop the grill shell on it. There we go. Looks pretty good. Obviously, once I get the bars in there. And then it's probably been, oh, I don't know. It's been about 10 minutes total. So let me just turn the key and see if she'll fire right back up. Actually, I know she will, because she just wants to run, guys. This motor and transmission just wants to run. So let me close the door. All right, here we go. Now this obviously is a hot start. Oh yeah, that's awesome. It's right at 170. That's after cooling down. We'll give it a minute. I gotta tighten up that belt for sure, the alternator belt. But it is charging the battery, because that battery is what, 13.2? That is awesome. All right, guys, so that is awesome. I did send a quick video over to Mike to show that it started up. I actually clipped out the part where that huge backfire was, and I sent it to him. I went, oh my God. And then he was like, oh, what happened? I go, no, no, no. And I told him, and then I showed it to him starting right up. So anyway, so I thought that was kind of funny, actually. I mean, it could have been a lot worse with that backfire, with all that gas in there. It could have just blew apart, something like exploded something. So, you know, my bad on that. But, you know, I figured it out. That's what I like about those fuse blocks, is that if you have a wire connected to it and the fuse is bad or something's going on with that circuit, it'll light up. So it'll tell you, hey, this circuit's supposed to be working, but it's not working because of a reason that you have to look into. And it acted like it wasn't getting any spark. And obviously it wasn't, because of the HEI, the wire wasn't getting anything to throw out, kind of like a coil wire. But anyway, so this weekend we finished up, or yeah, well, I guess finished finished up the wiring for everything up underneath there. So the circuitry for the starting is complete. So all that, the charging system, the start system, all the gauges are ran and working correctly. The gauge cluster up there is working correctly. Everything is grounded to the chassis, to the cab. So all that is working perfect. So as you can see, you know, I still got to mount the battery inside, but I'm not going to use that battery. I'm going to get a like a red top or something like that. I may go with the yellow top because it's a little bit more amperage out or whatever for the AC, the electric AC system that I'm thinking about getting, because that does pull 60 amps when it's running. That's a lot of amps. So the only thing I have to do left for wiring would be headlights, taillights, brake lights, park lights, and turn signals. But I have the foundation up there. I just have to lift it up with some relays and some flashers. But really, at this point, I'm not really too worried about that right now. So I think now what we're going to do is we're going to jump back on the body. So I don't know what order I'm going to do it, but there's a lot of things that have to be done. You know, the doors have to shut, the doors have to be fixed to shut. I still have to get metal for the bed, blah, blah, blah. But I think we're done with the mechanical ends for now. And periodically, I'm going to start it. I'm going to hook up the battery just like that. I'm going to start it, let it run. Yeah, and just let it work through the coolant system in here. Since I'm just running water, and you could tell by when I showed up that it was still a little rusty in there. Not much, but just a little. But I want it to go through some heat cycles, and then I'm going to drain the radiator and what have you. I did check the transmission fluid. I was 2 quarts low, so I did add 2 more quarts. So I did, after doing the change in the filter, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8. So far I've got 8 quarts I've had to put back into it. So once I get the lines connected to my mud daubered things, I'll probably have to add more. But for now, we're not moving it at all, so it shouldn't heat up at all. Okay, so again, guys, thanks for coming in and watching the exciting times of wiring and getting it running. So that's a big feat, to be honest with you. So normally it takes me, like I was saying, like 2 to 3 weeks to wire it up with one of those wiring harnesses that you buy. It's really, for me, it's about deciphering everything. This, it only took me basically 2 whole days to do it. And everything's up there nice, neat. Everything's separated out where I can understand when I did have a problem, I could pinpoint right where it was and fix it. So that's awesome. I hope this helps you guys figure out that, you know, you guys can do the wiring too. You don't necessarily have to buy the harness. Each one of those fuse blocks was 13 bucks. Yeah, 13 bucks. And the wiring stuff I had, the ignition switch was 12 bucks. And then hammer forming the cluster panel. That was it. Again, guys, thanks for joining me here, watching all this stuff. And hey, go out and build something cool that runs one weekend at a time. Catch you on the next one, guys. Bye.